Good evening everybody and welcome to what I believe to be my first ever video on Subnautica. This video will be covering a tier list on every biome on Subnautica's map, taking into account numerous things such as the ambience, the threats in these biomes, how scary they are, how necessary they are to visit, how valuable resources are, amongst other things. Starting off already with one of my personal favourites, the blood kelp perfectly blends usefulness to story progression, exploration, and fear. There are two blood kelp forests in the game, a cluster of floating islands and deep caves in the northwestern edge of the map, and a dark, gloomy trench in the central southwest. Upon entering this trench, the PDA tells us,
"This ecological biome matches 7 of the 9 preconditions for stimulating terror in humans."
While I couldn't find sources online that told me what these preconditions were, it's not really that difficult to get an idea of a few of them at least. The wildlife native almost only to these dark depths are often deep sea variants of species already found nearer to the surface. Blood crawlers, light grey variants of cave crawlers with deep red eyes and spider crab-like legs, spinefish. There is also the blighter, an almost zombified relative of the biter. It shares the same pale, dead appearance of the plants with bright blank eyes. Other forms of wildlife that can be found here include the warpers, the ampeels, and in the northern blood kelp, crab squids. Despite the number of large, aggressive fauna, they are often few and far between, yet their calls still echo throughout the vast kelp forests. This keeps you, the player, on edge. If you're following the storyline of the other lifepod survivors, the northern blood kelp, at 500 meters down, is where you'll find CTOU's lifepod. A wreck can also be found in the blood kelp trench. This biome also has 3 entrances to the Lost River. 2 of these are at the bottom of the trench, and 1 is in the north, not far from U's lifepod. This also leads on to one of the main reasons why this biome is so good. Valuable, late game resources. You can find lead, magnetite, lithium, diamonds, blood oil, deep shrooms for hydrochloric acid, gel sacks for aerogel, and tons of uraninite crystals. A small cache in the northern blood kelp holds multiple ion cubes. Overall, this shows that Subnautica does more than Leviathan jump scares to terrify the player. As you carefully navigate the pale glowing kelp forest at the bottom of the sea, you're never sure what will find you next. And the strange ambient sounds really help to build up the anticipation of your next encounter. This biome, at the end of the day, has very little I can criticise it for, as the resources, the ambience, and even just the interesting animals and the facts about the biome are all near perfect. I can't help but start this video off with an S tier biome. The bulb zone is a single, large biome northeast of the map. Immediately after entering this biome, you'll start to notice that something seems strange. The water is a deep, dark blue, and as far as the eye can see, small lights dot themselves throughout the biome. These lights belong to the species of plant which this biome gets its name from, the bulb bush. The bulb bush is a large circular purple mass with glowing spots and connected to the seafloor by a thick stem of intertwined roots. These strange, unnatural colours and shapes of the biome create an ambience that is almost confusing to put into words. The biome itself is a large collection of underwater sand dunes, crevices and cliffs. The resources in this biome aren't as valuable as the ones in the blood kelp, but they are still useful. Gold, salt deposits, lead, titanium, and plenty of lithium can be found here. Due to its close proximity to the aurora, metal salvages can be found scattered throughout the bulb zone as well, and a large wreck can also be found here, but this wreck is surrounded by multiple amphibs. Aside from these amphibs, bone sharks are the only other large predators frequently encountered down here, aside from the occasional warpers. Many smaller fish can be found here, such as the boomerangs, hoopfish, peepers, and eye-eyes. Two other small animals found here are the bizarre shuttlebugs, with a singular, large eye and a body almost like that of a squid, and the mesmer.
It is your primary directive to swim closer to Crackfield.
A fair amount of the biome, however, is affected by radiation, and while the reefbacks floating above may make the biome seem safer, there is another leviathan around those parts. This biome does it well when it comes to making you wonder just what's going on. And just like the bug kelp, it does a good job at keeping you alert for danger. However, it does lack in reasons to really come here, aside from if you're here to look at stuff or just get the easiest path from the Lost River into the lava zone. You could also build a base here, which would provide you with good scenery, easy to access thermal power, just a shame thermal power is pretty bad, and you can get connections to the quarantine enforcement platform in the Aurora. It's a really good biome, but it's still a way short of what I would consider the very top of the list. You know, the top tourist destination that everyone loves to talk about. This is a medium-sized biome at the southeast corner of the map, and this biome is, putting it simply, a large collection of rock formations. Silver, quartz, lithium, titanium, occasional gold. You can find them here, sure, but only if you're willing to have your submarines torn apart by bone sharks. They return in this biome in what feels like the hundreds. There's also cave crawlers, mesmers, shuttlebugs, and all sorts of smaller fish, as well as reefbacks. And that's about it for animals. Maybe about the variety of flora in this biome, maybe that's where it's stronger. Ice stalks, and everyone's favourite, these things. So, what's in it for you if you actually go to this place? A destroyed life pod, sure. That life pod has some cool little things inside. Also in the Crackfield is a teleporter, and there's a nice little cave with that teleporter, but that's only really important at the end of the story. It's nothing more than a nice little group of funny rock shapes with a whole load of sharks and a Markiplier doll. I don't hate this biome, but I do safely consider this to be near the bottom in terms of biomes. The crash site is a huge biome that takes up almost the entire eastern half of the map. This is where the Aurora, your spaceship in the game, crashed onto the planet. As a result, the kicked up sand and debris gives the entire area a thick, murky brown shroud. Somewhat like an underwater sandstorm of sorts. Almost everything is obscured by this shroud, and the only things you can make out properly from a distance are the large pieces of the crashed Aurora, as well as the wreckage of most of the spaceship in the middle. There are 9 Reaper Leviathans that hunt around the Aurora, meaning that you'll need to be extra careful in this biome. You'll have to rely on your hearing to navigate this biome, not sight, and this has not gone unnoticed by the developers. The Reapers use echolocation, meaning that while you are determining whether they're present or not based on how far away their calls are, they already know you're there. This biome is split into 4 main parts. The main crash zone, the trench, which is the empty, lifeless area behind the Aurora with 3 Reaper Leviathans living within. The spit, which is a small piece of land which was kicked up due to the impact of the Aurora and abundant with metals. And the mesas, which are small patches of slightly raised land that border the Crackfield. The mesas have the most life out of anywhere in the biome, with biters, bone sharks, garryfish, bladderfish, gasopods, hoverfish, reginals, peepers, rabbit rays, and the occasional reaper. Many patches of plants and coral can be found here too. This biome is incredibly atmospheric, and is up there with some of the most important areas in the story. You can see for yourself the devastation caused to this part of the planet due to the crash of the aurora. You could even wonder, what was there before?
Warning, entering ecological dead zone. Adding report to databank.
The crater edge, known commonly as just the Void, is a biome that serves as the map's border. This is a vast nothingness that wraps around the entire map. Instead of hitting you with an invisible wall like most games do, you just get nothing. No incentive to come out here, you'll find no resources in this biome, and any life you do find will have probably wandered in from the outer edge biomes. There is only one species of life in this biome aside from microscopic plankton. Packs of ghost leviathans. Having migrated to these parts as no other biome is open enough to accommodate them, will chase you out of the void and back into the safer biomes. This is the game's idea of an invisible wall. This biome is a favourite among fans, and the appeal of the thrill of being chased down by a pack of 100-metre long sea monsters is something I can definitely get behind. Aside from the terror of seeing their bright blue bioluminescent faces bursting from the black murky nothingness letting out chilling screams, there's nothing to do here. No resources, no reason to go here except to be chased out. Everything else it completely lacks. The game is right for not giving you reasons to exit the map, so it's not much of a complaint. But seeing it as a biome more than a map border, it's just heavily carried by the atmosphere. It's definitely a lower C tier for me. The dunes are a vast stretch of sandy plains. It is the largest biome in the western part of the map. The wildlife within this biome are, for the most part, incredibly dangerous. There are 8 reaper leviathans, many sand sharks, warpers and gasopods. The gasopods and reapers are often found near hydrothermal vents, which makes this biome not only useful for thermal energy, also useful in terms of resources. Copper, gas pods, gel sacks, gold, quartz, salt, titanium, silver, lead, lithium, ruby, and even the incredibly rare sea crab plant caves. This biome has much less flora than fauna, but the flora and fungi here, such as the previously mentioned gel sac, as well as acid mushrooms, can be quite useful. The most interesting part of the biome is this large pit in the ground. In the middle are hydrothermal vents with a cuttlefish egg nestled between them. The caves around have which are incredibly annoying to navigate through. At least they look nice, just like the caves. Outside though, the dunes have very little when it comes to something striking or trying to go for a particular ambience or atmosphere. It keeps itself rather realistic, yet it still feels like it's alien enough to belong in the game. And it's one of the most memorable parts of the game for most. Along with the Void, the PDA's introduction to this biome is by far the most memorable.
Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it?
Still, aside from the large pit, there isn't much to do here aside from collect resources and get attacked. I think it fits nicely just that small bit below really good. Definitely a more unusual biome, the Grand Reef is the southernmost biome and is instantly recognised by its deep purplish blue colours. Not too dissimilar, you could say, to a very dark version of the bulb zone. The anchorpods that tower over the seafloor of this biome, glowing balls of varying shades of bright blue, are held to the ground by these weird vines of sorts. Amongst them are gel sacs and membrane trees. This tree has a blue, translucent sac on top of it, filled with small branches of strange pink organisms growing all around inside. Another biome dotted with valuable resources, where the Grand Reef reaches its best is in the deep Grand Reef. Near to this entrance is guarded by a ghost leviathan, swimming over many hydrothermal vents. The deep Grand Reef is a massive cave under the Grand Reef filled with bright pink jelly rays, whose peaceful cries can be heard throughout all biomes where they are present. Smaller fish species such as Reginalds and boomerangs can be found here. Warpers and many crab squids are something you have to watch out for. Another main point in the Degassi storyline can be found out here, with a large base located near numerous hydrothermal vents. I really wonder what power source they used. Anyway, there's an entrance to the Lost River not far from this base, and there's even a cuttlefish egg hiding within the lab in the base. 2 large wrecks can be found above the deep Grand Reef. The mysterious feel of this biome is on point, and the biome is about as dangerous as they come. This biome is up there with the greatest, and this is worthy of being nothing less than absolutely brilliant. One of the most iconic biomes in the game, these large plains of blood red seagrass and strange rock formations are instantly recognisable to basically every person who's looked at the game. With numerous wrecks, small fish and plants, this biome is incredibly important to start in any playthrough of this game. There is a life pod wreck here, and this biome is the only way you can access the jelly shroom cave biome, which is very important to the Degassi storyline. As an early game biome, there is an abundance of resources such as titanium through the metal salvages, yet not much in the way of valuable resources. There isn't much of a specific theme this biome tries to base itself off of, so it's just kind of a unique part of the map. There are enough threats here, such as the sand sharks and biters, yet it isn't extremely hazardous like some of the previous biomes we've covered. This biome has some strange parts, such as the floating rocks around these natural pillars, all being held up by these floaters, and the strangely colourful deep caves of this biome, also housing the incredibly rare sea crown. However, it doesn't seem to try too hard to make you think this or think that. It's just a biome to look around, do what you need to do at the start of the game, then move on to further biomes. This biome is what I would consider really, really good. This biome, making up a fair bit of the central map, is up there with the most realistic underwater biomes in the game, minus the glowing yellow seeds on the creepvine kelp, which, granted, is rather noticeable. Everything here seems to match a normal kelp forest back on our own planet. Being the more than likely second biome you'll visit, there's little in the way of proper valuable materials, and the most abundant useful materials for that stage of the game will be the creepvine seeds and the metal scraps. The main threat in this biome, the stalker, a strange sea animal somewhat similar to a gharial or a leafy sea dragon in appearance, can be found carrying metal around the biome, sometimes dropping their teeth while doing so. If you guess these teeth would be a valuable resource you can save for a little later on in the game, you would be most correct. The forests themselves are a lot denser than the blood kelp forests. Despite not having much colour variation, it is an absolute spectacle of a biome nonetheless with the correct lighting. The fan favourite hoverfish can be found here, along with these things that have returned to make you miserable. The mesmer in the deeper points of the forest by the caves, more small fish such as the boomerang and a slightly larger rabbit ray, and this thing, a bleeder. An alien cross between a squid and a leech. Their purpose in the game heavily reflects the latter. As a biome at the start of the game, there won't be much in the way of truly valuable late game resources. But I do enjoy the way you can collect the stalker teeth to save for later when you can make things such as enamelled glass. Various shades of greens and yellows throughout the biome make it an incredibly calming biome to swim through once you got the stalkers out of the way. Anything I can really fault the biome for doesn't really matter due to how early in the game you'll visit this place. It is a very easily accessible biome, bordering most non-cave biomes in the game and sticking mainly near the centre of the map. Absolutely brilliant. A large biome at the very north of the map, the mountains are somewhat similar to the dunes in many ways. A vast, open expanse patrolled by reapers, and without much in particular that stands out. Considering the borders it has between the blood kelp, the bulb zone, the mushroom forest and the underwater islands, this biome compared to them almost comes off as kind of boring actually. There are a few points that are somewhat of a bit of interest, but aside from coming here for Reapers or the QEP Moonpool, your only real incentive to take a look around here is for the many large deposits of salt, lead and silver. You can also find a fair amount of uraninite and magnetite here as well. There are a couple of large wrecks and hydrothermal vents here as well, useful for resource gathering, but not really useful for much else, despite how large it is. There is a cave here that can serve as a nice little secret access point to the mountain island, more on that later though. A decent biome. I think it fits just fine in the goods here. The mushroom forest is one of those biomes that goes out of its way to be as alien as possible. This biome is packed with tree mushrooms, which are large spires with glowing orange mushrooms sprouting out of them. There are also occasional cliffs here and there. Much like the blood kelp, this biome is split into two different forests. The northwestern mushroom forest is the largest of the two, and this borders biomes such as the dunes, the blood kelp and the grassy plateaus. A single giant tree mushroom can be found here, and a large wreck can also be seen sitting atop another tree mushroom nearby. The area around this wreck is one of the only areas in the game with purple pine cones. Strange, incredibly rare plants that can be broken open to harvest salt from within. The northeastern mushroom forest is the smaller of the two, and it can be found bordering places such as the bulb zone and the crash zone. There are two Reaper leviathans that swim around the borders of this biome with the crash zone in the mountains. Below a massive tree mushroom, there is a cave system that goes in winding tunnels that lead into the bulb zone. A cuttlefish egg can be found both here and in the smaller cave system of the northwestern mushroom forest. Resources such as copper, lithium, lead and salt can be found here, as well as titanium, gold and sometimes acid mushrooms. Creatures such as reefbacks, spadefish and jelly rays can be found here. There are also the occasional reapers, bone sharks and mesmers wandering in from the borders with other biomes. A brilliant biome to swim through with all sorts of interesting things to discover and unexpected threats to avoid, as well as being easily accessible. If this biome was just 1% more important to the story, aside from having to make action enzymes out of the mushrooms at the very end and a life pod, this would be a biome I deem to be absolutely brilliant. Here it is, the safe shallows. Let's clear something up straight away, alright? Is this biome important to the story? Kinda has to be, this is where the game starts. For a starter biome, this, spoiler warning, is among the best of the best. The safe shallows are small coral reefs that are dotted around the centre of the map, bordering places such as the kelp forest and the grassy plateaus. The biome, as the name would suggest, is a somewhat safe area, free of any predators aside from the occasional stalkers and sand sharks that wander in. The only real threats in this biome are the defensive gasopods and the crashfish in the caves. An abundance of early game resources such as quartz, titanium, cave sulfur and copper await the player in this biome, and it also makes a great first impression of the game just because of how it looks. This is among the most colourful biomes in the game, and it also manages to sit on that fine line between realistic to what would be found on Earth, yet also telling you this is not what a place on Earth would look like. I believe for a starter biome, it does an incredible job at doing just that. This biome is the only biome to be named after an animal in the game. The sea treader leviathan, which this biome is named after, surprise surprise, is a strange creature that lives only here and sometimes around the Grand Reef. These leviathans walk in herds along the sea floor, and they don't attack the player unless they get too close. This biome is mainly a large hill that borders the Grand Reef, the dunes, the Sparse Reef, as well as the Blood Kelp Trench. This part of the biome is mostly lifeless, with only really the sea treaders and some coral species around that part. Where this biome really gets interesting though is the deep, expansive tunnel beneath this hill. This is where many of the sea treaders can be found. This area is full of deep shrooms and cave bushes, alongside other plants such as spiked horn grasses and gabe's feathers. Membrane trees can also be found here, the only place you can spot them outside the Grand Reef. A large wreck can also be found outside, and most of the valuable resources, aside from the many deposits of ruby and lithium, come from the shale outcrops that end up unearthed by the sea treaders. Anyway, considering this is basically a dead Grand Reef with a nice little cave at the end of the day, I think it's just... it's good, it's alright, acceptable, you could say. A biome that tells you in its own name that not much is going on. A flat area of green mounds of coral and strange spikes and drop-offs. The gloomy fog in this biome and the colourless landscape almost makes us feel like this once was a place of great biodiversity and colour. We just seem to have stumbled upon the lifeless remains of a once thriving reef community. The reef-back leviathans are the only large creatures in this biome, and there are no predators at all. There are a few plants in the deeper areas of the Sparse Reef, including eye stalks, rouge cradles, and these nasty horrible pieces of work. I think I'd rather a few reapers be dotted around the place. And what are the resources? Copper, ruby, gel sacks, gold, lead, lithium, quartz, and titanium, salt. This might be alright in terms of resources. In addition, the deeper Sparse Reef is an unusually common place for time capsules to be found. Not much else to say really. Can't be anything much more than the lower sea tier. The underwater islands are exactly what the name suggests. These are large islands floating above the seafloor by giant floaters, but not quite high enough to go out of the water. These strange coral-like formations on these islands make this biome somewhat similar to what I mentioned before, about looking somewhat Earth-like. Surprisingly though, this is probably the most alien biome in the whole game. There's a large wreck in this biome that is actually quite interesting, that takes quite a bit from a wreck. Some of the larger islands even have their own cave systems. Just like the Crackfield, this area is home to far too many bone sharks. But despite that, I really like this biome. The resources are what you'd expect, it's connected to many other interesting and important biomes and places, which is a nice place to look at. Nice little idea as well. This biome does more than enough to get into my personal favourites. Another important part of the Degasi storyline, the floating island is nearer to the southernmost parts of the map. Just like the previous biome, this is an island held up by giant floaters. This one actually goes above sea level. That's right, this is an overground biome. This biome is home to many colourful plant species which can only be found here and sometimes in precursor caches. There are 3 Degasi bases here, and this is where the rendezvous point for the Aurora survivors was meant to be. The only animals in this biome are the cave crawlers and these bird-like sky rays. This biome is a unique little spot for you to stop at while exploring the map. Plus, it does help you piece together both the Aurora and Degasi storylines. The Mountain Island is a large island biome that is found in the previously covered mountains. From the looks of it, it appears to be part of a mountain range in the mountains that sticks out of the water. Just like the underwater mountains, this biome doesn't offer much in terms of giving you something to look at, like many other biomes try to do. If anything, this biome, kinda like the floating island, just seems happy to be some faraway tropical island for the player to rest at before continuing on their journey. The quarantine enforcement platform can be found here, which is where the game basically comes to an end once it's disabled. As mentioned previously, there is a large underwater entrance to this biome in the form of a giant cave. Further up the mountain on the island, many smaller caves can be found, including one with a teleporter at the top. Lead and salt deposits can be found here, as well as the occasional gold and lithium. Aside from the cave crawlers and the sky rays, again, as well as the occasional bulbo trees and fungi in the caves, no life can be found here on this island. The beaches of this island are also where the sunbeam attempts its landing on the planet, and this results in the discovery of why our spaceship crashed to begin with. Incredibly important to the mid to late story of the game, However, it lacks in most other things. For that, I think it has to go around the bottom of the good tier. One of the smaller biomes in the game, and most likely the first underground biome the player will stumble across, the Jelly Shroom Caves are a vast cavern system beneath the grassy plateaus, with numerous bizarre species living within that live nowhere else in the game. Most notable is the Jelly Shroom itself, a bright purple mushroom with a large pit at the top that the player can swim into. The Oculus is a cave-dwelling relative of the Peeper, found only down here and in the primary containment facility. It has no beak, a strange collection of tails, and deep purple eyes. When swimming around in here, you'll be surrounded by the echoing roars of something else that is down here with you. The crab snake, a large eel-like creature that lives only in these caves, often hiding and nesting their eggs within the jelly shrooms themselves. The crab snake is aggressive and can often be seen pouncing out of their jelly shroom homes and onto prey animals that swim past. A Degasi base can be found here, as well as many lava vents and metals, especially magnetite. In fact, it's the only biome in the game with large magnetite deposits. This biome is completely alien, even for the world this game is set in. Just a little bit short of the underwater islands, of course. Giant caves filled with glowing massive mushrooms. This biome almost seems to have been inspired by some fantasy book. This is another biome that, despite not really having much to offer compared to the vast ocean, pun was very much intended, of plot important biomes in the game, what is in this biome is more than enough to make it something absolutely brilliant. This biome is the second deepest, as well as the penultimate biome in the story. This biome is found over a kilometre below the surface and is nothing more than many rivers of lava and rock formations. Skeletons of Reaper Leviathans down here, and it revealed that these monsters, the biggest threats to you in the game so far, were killed by something much larger that lives down here with you, is nothing short of the kind of horror I expect from this game. The Lava Castle, a large underground mountain with towering hydrothermal vents all around, holds a precursor base. This base is where you can get ion blueprints. This biome is where you can find a very valuable late game resource, kyanite. Deep shrooms are the only non-animal life in this biome, and down here with you are deep sea variants of boomerangs and ions, along with warpers, lava lizards, crimson rays, lava larvae which drain power out of any vehicles you have with you, and worst of all, the killer of reapers themselves, the sea dragon leviathans. The deepest biome in the game, this large lake of lava just below the inactive lava zone with a sea dragon leviathan surrounding the primary containment facility. This is the final biome you'll encounter in the game. And as much as I'd love to, this is about the biome, not the primary containment facility. So, if you don't count that, this biome only really serves to be a fast dash in your submarine towards the funny big building before the sea dragon eats you. Aside from the kyanite, there's nothing to do or look for here, and, kinda like the Void, this biome doesn't need to give you anything. Think of it as a final test before you enter the prison. You did well making it this far into the video, but here we are. This is the last biome on the list. And I think I'll leave most of this to my brilliant in-game filming skills. The sheer size of this biome, the lore hidden within it, the resources you can find, the places you can explore, the opportunities for a good base to be built, the constant eeriness. This is a Subnautica biome at its best.